Are you building a product-based business when a subscription model might be better, or maybe scaling a service business when a marketplace could be more profitable? You see, choosing the wrong business model is a lot like using the wrong tool for the job. It just doesn't work. Now, in this video, I'll share the framework that I've used to help multiple entrepreneurs find their ideal business model. You'll discover how to evaluate your offer, your customers, and your goals to create a model that actually drives consistent revenue. We'll break it down step by step. We'll spark the idea, explore the story, and uncover the solution. And hey, if you're new here, I'm Gary Smith, a business and marketing adjunct professor and the founder of GS Biz Coach. I help solopreneurs turn their ideas into income because too often entrepreneurs struggle to really take what's in their mind and turn that into a real revenue generating business. But through these videos and my coaching programs, I'll show you how to do exactly that. So if you're feeling stuck, keep watching. Now, let me paint a picture for you. 42% of startups fail because they didn't solve a market need. But even great ideas can collapse under the weight of a flawed business model. Even a product with perfect market fit can falter if it can't monetize effectively. Now, a service that clients love won't scale if the pricing structure isn't sustainable. In other words, the business model that you choose shapes how customers experience your company and determines whether your business thrives or fails. In fact, every entrepreneur faces this critical decision early on. That means your business model dictates how you acquire customers, how you deliver value, and to stay profitable long term. Now, just consider Blockbuster versus Netflix. Now, both started by renting movies, right? Blockbuster relied on late fees and physical stores, whereas Netflix embraced subscription and mail order convenience models. However, one model became obsolete. The other redefined an entire industry. The tragedy is that many entrepreneurs don't realize they've chosen the wrong model until it's too late, right? They spend years kind of refining their product, optimizing their marketing, only to find their business model is the bottleneck. It's like building a house on unstable ground, right? The structure might look great, but it can't stand without a solid foundation. And research shows that companies with intentionally designed business models actually grow at 30% faster rate than those who leave it to chance. That's because your business model directly impacts your cash flow, your customer retention, and your scalability. For example, product-based businesses face inventory costs and shipping logistics, while service-based businesses hit capacity limits unless they standardize or scale their workforce. On the other hand, marketplaces like Airbnb, they need critical mass to really generate network effects, requiring careful planning to attract both hosts and guests. However, your business model isn't static, right? It evolves as your company grows, or at least it should, right? Choosing the wrong one early on creates unnecessary friction. Now, look at Adobe, right? They started originally selling expensive software licenses and then changed to a subscription model, recognizing that customers actually preferred those smaller reoccurring payments. Now, that pivot wasn't luck, right? It was deliberate. So what exactly is a business model, right? It is the system that explains how your company creates, delivers, and captures value. It shapes customer interactions from pricing to delivery. If scaling feels harder than it should be, the problem might not be your product. It might be your business model. And here's the reality. Most businesses fall into one of 5 core models: product, service, subscription, marketplace, or freemium, right? Each has advantages and challenges. So let's break these down with some examples to really help you decide which fits best for your venture. Now, first, product-based models. These are like the brick and mortar stores, right? They make something and they sell it. But Shopify's data actually shows the hidden complexities like inventory costs, they dominate early expenses, and cash flow becomes a juggling act. For instance, a clothing brand might sell $100,000 worth of product, but lose money after manufacturing and storage and shipping costs, right? You pay suppliers up front, but then you have to wait 30, 60, or 90 days for retailer payments. And this creates a financial strain. Next, consider service businesses. Now, these trade time for money, like a marketing agency or a consulting firm. The challenge here is that scaling is tough, right? You either work more hours, which are really unsustainable, or you can hire more staff, which starts to get expensive. And for example, a graphic designer charging $100 per logo has limited growth potential. But by offering templates, let's say for $29 a month through a subscription, they can serve hundreds at once. You see, subscription models, they're kind of like that steady heartbeat, right? They turn one-time transactions into reoccurring revenue. But what about marketplace models, right? Think about platforms like Airbnb or Etsy, right? They thrive on network effects, becoming more valuable as more users join. But early on, they faced, that chicken and the egg problem, right? Airbnb initially struggled with too few listings to attract travelers and too few travelers to attract hosts. But by focusing and targeting high demand events, they built momentum in specific markets before they expanded. And then comes our freemium models. These are like Spotify, but they tend to kind of walk a fine line, right? They attract users with freemium features, but then they limit access to premium perks, encouraging an upgrade. However, this model can fail if too much value is given away or if free alternatives exist. Businesses must constantly kind of deliver the value to retain their paying users. And finally, let's talk about hybrids, right? These models combine approaches. For example, a fitness brand might sell equipment, which is your product, alongside a subscription, right? For maybe workouts. Now, these hybrids, they adapt to customer preferences, creating multiple income streams. The key question is, how do customers prefer to engage? Right? The most resilient, I would say, models align with natural customer behavior, and that ensures long-term success. Now, perhaps you've heard this story, right? But back in 2000, which was about 25 years ago, Reed Hastings offered to sell Netflix to Blockbuster for $50 million. Blockbuster executives laughed at that idea. That rejection ultimately led to the creation of a $200 billion company. Now, Netflix's journey wasn't just about streaming technology, right? It was about really rethinking what business they were in. Because Netflix began as a DVD by mail service, solving just one problem, right? Eliminating late fees. Customers could keep DVDs as long as they wanted without penalties, but this convenience had its limits, right? Physical discs required manufacturing, they required shipping, they required inventory management, and this made the model hard to scale. But when broadband internet became widespread, Netflix then faced some critical choices, right? Stick with DVDs or bet everything on digital delivery. And the turning point came when Netflix realized that customers, they didn't care about envelopes or plastic discs. What they wanted was instant, unlimited entertainment. And this insight really drove their pivot to streaming. But it wasn't just a technology shift. Netflix rebuilt their business model around three pillars: reoccurring revenue, content ownership, and adaptability. In other words, switching from those per rental fees to monthly subscriptions really transformed their cash flow. It created predictable income and stability. Now, this decision allowed Netflix to invest in original content like House of Cards and Stranger Things, which became long-term assets. They own those. Unlike traditional cable networks that paid for content, right? They'd have to really relicense all the time. Netflix owned its shows outright, ensuring lasting value. And the results were dramatic, right? Netflix churn rate is just 2.4% compared to cable's 37%. Now, this means that Netflix retains nearly all its customers, while cable companies, they constantly battle attrition. Now, that stability stems from a model that feels essential and continuously improves. You see, Netflix pivot wasn't just luck, right? This was a deliberate process. They identified their true value, which was convenient entertainment. They aligned it with emerging technology, which was streaming. And then their revenue model turned into subscriptions, right? So they also vertically integrated to control their costs by creating original content. So what's the lesson? Well, your business model should reflect what customers truly value, not just how you currently deliver it. And I share this with you because many founders, they fear change. They cling to existing revenue. Now, Netflix faced this too, right? They were running DVDs and streaming simultaneously before gradually shifting their resources. They didn't wait for a crisis, right? They acted early. So ask yourself, does your business model align with customer needs? Netflix thrived because they answered that question and they acted decisively. And you can apply that same type of decision framework in your own business. And I made it easy for you, right? I've created a 4-question framework that really cuts through the noise, right? It really sets us up for you. So question 1, what's the easiest way for your customers to say yes? You see, many entrepreneurs design their models around what's convenient for them, not how their customers naturally want to buy. For example, A consulting firm might insist on annual retainers when clients prefer a monthly project-based billing system. Or an e-commerce company might require account creation, even though guest checkout could boost conversions by 30%. You see, these friction points, they might seem minor to you, but they can be deal breakers for customers. So ask yourself, have you noticed a specific friction point in your customer journey? Question 2, does your business model align with how you deliver value? You see, misalignment, that really creates an internal tension. Now, a SaaS company might fail because it's really selling consulting services designed as software. Similarly, a meal kit service, charging subscription fees but struggling with weekly delivery and logistics, they're bound to face issues. But it doesn't have to be that way, because your model should naturally flow from your operations, not fight against it. So ask yourself, is your revenue model working against your operations or with it? Question 3, what metrics prove your model works? For example, subscription businesses really depend on churn rate and customer lifetime value, while marketplaces, well, they're going to track supply and demand growth. Whereas, physical product business might focus on inventory, turnover, gross margins, things like that. But beware of vanity metrics, like total revenue, for example, right? This can be misleading. For instance, I recently worked with a SaaS company that was celebrating a very high annual recurring revenue, but they were also ignoring a 15% monthly churn rate. But by catching that and then focusing on retention metrics, they were able to stabilize their business before hitting that cash crunch, right? So ask yourself, are you tracking the right metrics to succeed? And how do you know? And number 4, what's your natural expansion path? Amazon didn't start as the everything store. They mastered books first. Then they expanded it into adjacent categories. Now, a fitness app might begin with workout tracking and then grow into maybe nutrition planning or equipment sales, things like that. The key is to start with a model that builds your credibility and your cash flow. So ask yourself, does your model have room to grow naturally? Think of this framework almost like a pilot's checklist before takeoff. It ensures that your business is ready to scale. So start by removing that friction, align your business models with operations, track meaningful metrics, and then plan for expansion. Companies that revisit these steps consistently are going to outperform those that don't. And I would tell you this, remember that your business model, it should evolve over time, right? It should grow. It's not set in stone. So making the right choice early on, that can save you headaches later down the road. That said, even the perfect execution can't save a flawed model, but a strong one can weather weaknesses and mistakes. You see, testing and adapting, those are going to be your greatest tools. So pick from one of the models that we talked about in our conversation today and write a simple statement. How will you deliver value? And how will you get paid? And if you want to learn more about how to turn your ideas into income, just click or swipe the screen to watch this next video.